G7 early for Washington.
Well, I have to be back. Very important. I want to just thank our great host. He did a fantastic job. Thank you. In Canada, I think we got a lot done. Really a lot done. In fact, UK, we signed a big trade deal today, and we're working on others. But we had just a really great relationship with everybody, and it's really nice. I wish I could stay for tomorrow, but they understand it.
Summit success. Prime Minister Mark Carney hosted the G7 summit in Kananaskis, Alberta this week. The U.S. president left a day early, but the two leaders have committed to negotiating a new economic and security pact within the next 30 days. Back in Ottawa, the House is now officially on hiatus for the summer. The Prime Minister will head to The Hague for the NATO Leaders Summit next week. Then it's the barbecue circuit. Conservative leader Pierre Poilievre, meanwhile, is likely headed into a by-election with the hopes of trying to win back a seat in the House. So he could be spending at least half of the summer on the campaign trail, and voters in Battle River, Crowfoot, Alberta could be heading back to the polls by early August. So what does each party need to do to make this summer a success? Our Sunday strategy session is here to talk about that. Kathleen Monk is a former NDP strategist and director of communications to the late Jack Layton. Lisa Raitt is former Conservative deputy leader and current vice chair and managing director of global investment banking at CIBC. And Scott Reid rounds us out. He's a CTV News political analyst and former communications director to Prime Minister Paul Martin. Hi, everybody. Good to see you. Lisa, I'll start with you. What do you make of putting that time frame on the prospect of a deal?
It's pretty gutsy. I'll start with that. As a former politician, I mean, you don't really necessarily want to put all these targets on your back in terms of having the opposition be able to say you promised this and you weren't able to deliver. Hopefully the gutsiness is coupled with a good assurance that you're actually going to get to some kind of a deal. But you have to wonder about what the leverage really is for Canada. We want to get the best deals possible. Do we get a better deal by waiting a little bit longer to see whether or not Donald Trump becomes weaker the closer he gets to the midterm elections coming up in 2026? And really, do the Americans want to do a deal before we actually have to do a review of the tripartite agreement? So there's a lot of balls up in the air. It was very, I would say, curious to see him, meaning the Prime Minister, set the date as he did. But we now get to hold him to account to it.
How politically risky, pardon me, Scott, do you view setting that date as?
Well, it does introduce an element of political risk, but I think it also introduces an element of tension into the talks and an imperative to reach some kind of conclusion. And I think it has to be coupled with the Prime Minister's move on Thursday, where he, put the deadline for counter tariffs. All of this seems to me to be engineered to try to bring the parties closer together. It's a little like putting the pistol on the table in a negotiation and saying, listen, right, in 30 days, either we get a deal or this thing goes off. And I do think it's politically risky, but my guess is it's probably our best bet. And maybe I'm a lot like most Canadians right now. I sort of watch this and I go, I have to trust that Mark Carney knows better how to handle this and knows more about this than I do. So we're in his hands.
I think that there's also an element, Kathleen, of insulating yourself from domestic pressure from the steel and aluminum industry and certain premiers who wanted to see a response very soon from the federal government to the imposition of the doubling of tariffs on that industry. Like, this allows them, as they did on Thursday, as Scott points out, just a few days after saying it's 30 days, to say by that time, if we don't have a deal, we'll put in counter tariffs to kind of, and I mean, the industry was supposed to hold a press conference and canceled it that day once they made that announcement. So I think the pressure was sizable.
The pressure was on, and in some ways you can look at it as Prime Minister Carney trying to manage his own expectations. 3 weeks ago, remember, we were going to have a deal in 3 days. That was the rumor that was buzzing around Ottawa. Now, 3 weeks later, it's going to be in another 30 days. And in fact, for the steel and steel tariffs that you just mentioned, I mean, like, we are literally waiting 7 weeks from when the U.S. took their action to when potentially Prime Minister Carney will put the action on July 21st. That's a long time for those steel workers to wait, and they're not happy right now, or at least they say what he announced on Thursday was insignificant. But listen, I think overall you got to say that G7 was largely an exercise in disaster avoidance. There wasn't a big blow up, right? It wasn't major decision making. Even with Trump leaving early, he said that there could be a likelihood of a deal. That was positive. Even if he did just, moments later get on a plane and say possibly, Canada should be the 51st state once again, and they were going to be paying for the Golden Dome. So overall, I think that Carney passed this test of the G7, of his first first hosting on the international stage. But whether he'll pass the test of getting the deal in the next 30 days, I think that remains to be seen.
Speaking of disaster avoidance, this is our last show, Lisa, Scott, and Kathleen, for the season as we head into the summer. I'm going to ask each of you what you think your party needs to do over the summer to make it a successful one. For them, Lisa, I'll start with you. What do the Conservatives need to do?
They need to win that by-election that's supposed to be called in Crowfoot. I mean, that's what it comes down to. They definitely need to have their best player on the team, and that is Pierre Poilievre, back in the House of Commons, because it's going to give direction as to where the Conservatives are going to go in how they be the opposition to a Mark Carney government. I don't feel like we know what we're doing right now in terms of how to attack the government, how to hold them to account. And I think having your leader back in the House is going to be something that will be positive. So they'll be focusing on that.
Scott, what do the Liberals need to do?
Keep setting the pace. I mean, the secret to Mark Carney's success, and is reflected in high polling numbers for him and low polling numbers for the opposition, is that he has driven the agenda since he became prime minister. Frankly, since he was sworn in as prime minister months ago, it has just been boom, boom, boom. And summertime can, the living can get easy. I don't think the living's going to get easy under Mark Carney. Keep the pace, keep setting, keep driving the agenda. And I have a suspicion that if you do that, the popular support and the public approval will fall into place.
Kathleen, the NDP, what the heck do they do?
Yeah, three things for sure. They need to do their, post-election review process and renewal, figure out where the party's going from here, navigate how this new 7-member caucus is going to work and how they're going to try to do some leverage. What other surrogates can they recruit to try to build up the brand of the party once again? And then most importantly, set the leadership contest rules. And that will probably be done this summer. And I would expect to see some of the leadership candidates get out there this summer on the barbecue circuit.
Will you? Do you think that race is happening soon?
I think they will set the rules in the next, 30 days. Let's say 30 days. I think we'll see something. I'll use Carney's line, but I think 30 days. By summer, midsummer, we'll see those rules come out, and I think we'll see some of the leadership candidates start to get out there and get to know those members.
I've stolen a bit of time, so I'm going to ask the opposite of each of you. Lisa, what do the Liberals need to do?
Oh, they definitely need to execute on all of these massive promises they are making. Get together with Indigenous groups, figure out how they're going to apply this new bill C5 to make sure that we're building pipelines and infrastructure that's needed to make our economy stronger in different ways.
Scott, the Conservatives?
It's way more than winning that by-election. I mean, they won it by 84% a few weeks ago, so that should be in the bank. They've got to decide what their focus is, what their critique is, what they're going to change. They haven't really gone through any process, privately or publicly, of saying, here's what we have to do differently, and here's what we find fault with this government. It's not clear at all right now what the Conservatives stand for or where they're going.
Liberals
have to be careful that they don't alienate Indigenous groups with C5, and most importantly, some of their own members of their own caucus that we hear are speaking up against C5 as well.
And the Conservatives?
Oh, the Conservatives for sure. Lisa's right. They've got to win that by-election, but with him dropping and the Conservative Party's approvals dropping by almost 20%, they're going to have to work to get him back in the media and ensure that their party can move forward under Pierre Poilievre and win that January leadership review. That's the number. I know he's going to win the by-election, but how will he do in January?
See you all in January in Calgary. Thanks, everyone. Have a wonderful summer. I appreciate it. Lisa, Raitt, Scott, Reid, and Kathleen Monk, our Sunday strategy session. That actually does it for this week and this season here on Question Period. It has been a true pleasure to be with you all year. I hope you have a wonderful summer, and thank you in all sincerity to so many people who work behind the scenes to get this show to air every week. Believe me when I say all of it is because of them, and I am eternally grateful. Thank you to all of you for watching as well. I hope you have a wonderful rest of your weekend and a wonderful summer.